Hello, everyone. So happy to be back with you. I so welcome you to Mary's Little House by way of YouTube. I look so forward to being with you. The, the trees are so beautiful. The pear trees, the apple trees, the plum trees, the peach trees, all of them are just radiant now at their peak. I, I saw so many beautiful things of wildlife around here too. The deer are coming out and grazing over next door in the vacant lot next to us. Uh, and they're not skittish. They, I walk by, I open the garage door, they just watch me. I'm so happy to be in the midst of God's creatures, God's beautiful creatures. Today, Peanut's sitting on my lap here. Are you awake, Peanut? They're going to see, this might be the last time you'll see him with his old hairdo. He's going to get an Easter hairdo on Wednesday morning, the day after tomorrow. So he'll look different. He's so loyal. He's such a good dog. He hates to go in the car, but when I go, he wants to be with me. And the pathetic little sight. One time I had the side door open. I was loading stuff up, and he jumped into the van. He wanted to be with me, and he hates to go in the car. Going in the car or the van, he's going to the veterinarian and some shot or some procedure he just doesn't like. Well, none of us would like anyway. Anyway, Peanut stepped on a snake. I don't think it was poisonous. It's in the backyard there. And I picked him up real fast. The snake was sunning, so didn't look like it was going to bite anybody. But it sort of scared me. But Peanut, he didn't even know that he almost stepped on it. Literally stepped on it. I saw a shrew. A shrew. It's a little tiny rodent. It's a little looks like a mouse, but it's got a more pointy face than a mouse, a longer point face. I saw a shrew today. I saw a Mr. Toad, I call him. He was there, sitting there, and I felt so bad for him because he didn't look like he was well. So I put him over by the tree so I wouldn't run over him with the car. He was on the driveway there. I don't think he's doing very well. He didn't seem very lethargic and everything, so I'm hoping he'll be all right. So toads, shrew, snake, deer, and Peanut here, and all these things are surrounded with God, and the beautiful fruit trees blossoming, and the berry trees blossoming, and the redbud blossoming, and the daffodils blossoming. It's sure a sign of hope and new life. Oh, talking about hope and new life, our Holy Father, Pope Benedict XVI, is in Mexico. And last night I got to see him in the Plaza de la Paz, the Plaza of Peace. It's in a very Catholic area. 94% of the people in that state of Mexico, I can't pronounce, it's a long word for the state of Mexico. They have states just like we have states in our country. Anyway, they had the children there, the young people. Oh, were they enthusiastic! And they were playing in a full instrumented orchestra and just choirs looking like rose beds with different colored shirts and gold scarves and everything. They were just so enthusiastic. It's good, just so and full of joy and full of beautiful music from Mozart or the masters to the Indian the Mexican kind of dancing and everything. It just was wonderful, just for a celebration. And our Holy Father came out to bless the children and the youth, and he told them that And I love this quote, and I wrote it down verbatim so I wouldn't goof it up. God wants us to be happy always. God wants us to be happy always. That's what Benedict XVI. You know what? I have a hunch that people think that religion, that our Catholic faith is not happy. It is the happiest. And he said that to the children, to the young people, he challenged them to witness and to be heroic in their following of Jesus. I love that. Youth is made for heroism, not for soft living and partying and all that stuff, but youth for heroism, to give themselves to a cause, to the Lord, for the good of their brothers and sisters. But he challenged them that way. But anyway, he said, God wants us to be happy always. That is so true. I just can't. But people think it's not. It's just the opposite. If you're with God and you're religious, you can't do the things you want to do. Oh no! In the second reading today, Jesus, in the days when Christ was in the flesh, he offered prayers and supplications with loud cries and tears to God, who was able to save him from death, and he was heard because of his reverence. He was heard because of his reverence. Now this is Jesus. This is the book of St. Paul's letter to the Hebrews, and he goes on. Listen to this though. Son though he was, he learned obedience from what he suffered, and when perfected, he became the source of eternal salvation for all who obey him. See, people think that happiness is just going out and doing whatever you please. And Jesus puts the lie to that. He learned obedience from what he suffered. He submitted himself to the Father's will. The Father's will called him to become man, to become flesh, to be in the flesh like we are. Everything but sin, to be human, in every way except sin, to be in the flesh. And he learned obedience from what he suffered. And and let me press it on again. And when perfected, you know what perfected is? It's not like doing everything precisely. The saints had their faults, and they, boy, I know I'm going to be stumbling across the gate of heaven too with my faults and my humanness. That's not what perfection means, because God, I think, keeps us human so we could be humble and little, so that God could work in us. Like the Blessed Mother said, the Lord has regarded the lowliness of his handmaid. But perfection means that everything we are and everything we have and everything we say and everything we do is for love of God. And because we love God so much, love of his children, love of one another. It's a perfection of love. It's a total gift of ourselves. And because Jesus was obedient and learned obedience by what he suffered, he brought salvation to the world by his death on the cross. That was his ultimate act of obedience. He was obedient even to death, as St. Paul says in Philippians, his letter to the Philippians. He was obedient even to death on the cross. And there's where our happiness is. There's where our salvation is. Not only in heaven, to get to heaven, yes, indeed, our whole life here on earth is to prepare ourselves for heaven. This is only temporary. We're just pilgrims here. There's no lasting abode here. In heaven there is. Anyway, he learned obedience from what he suffered, and when perfected, when he was totally given up to the Father on the cross for love of us, for our salvation, when he was totally doing the Father's will, there's nothing else he could give to the Father, nothing else he could do, a complete gift of himself when he was perfected. That's what perfection is, complete gift. There's nothing we're holding back, nothing, but only God, only for God, only for God. And because we are so in love with God, only for others, living for others. not watching out for our number one, ourselves. Anyway, uh, he learned. He became salvation. He he became the source of eternal salvation for all who obey him. And in the gospel, he tells us how to obey him. He's talking about his death. Um, the hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. That's John 12. That's today's gospel for the fifth Sunday of Lent. And then he says, so the being glorified means when he's going to be raised on the cross. That's his ultimate glorification. But from the cross he will rise, and 3 days later he'll rise from the dead and ascend to his Father. Okay, I solemnly assure you, Kill goes on, unless the grain of wheat falls to the earth and dies, it remains just a grain of wheat. He's talking about something here, about suffering and about obedience, about salvation, about happiness. But if it dies, it produces much fruit. Then the man who loves his life loses it. Those who just do their own thing, who just want to go out and just do whatever that pleases them, they lose their lives. If they lose it here on earth. They're so unhappy. Nothing will fully satisfies them. Only God and Jesus, the joy of man's desiring, only that they can satisfy. All the other stuff, without God, number one, it becomes just empty. No fizz in it. It's like a pop without fizz. Empty and nothing there. Only appearances, only illusions of happiness, but not true happiness. Okay, so but the man who loves his life, but if he dies, it produces much fruit. The grain of wheat, the grain of wheat goes in, and it gets a stem, and then it has the harvest comes. It's all kinds of fruit. The man who loves his life loses it. That's the one who just goes out and doesn't regard God. Well, it doesn't have obedience to God. Doesn't want to suffer. Runs away from the cross and responsibility. While the man who hates his life in this world preserves it to life eternal. The ones who deny themselves, who are obedient, who love God more than themselves, they will preserve their life, and not only here on earth but in heaven. They will be happy, and that's the secret to happiness. Is that it's ironic. It looks like we're putting ourselves in a bind, but we're really free. Obedience to God, to His commandments, is out of love for Him, to please Him, is our greatest happiness here on earth and in heaven. And Jesus taught that. Jesus led the way. And that's how God wants us always to be happy. He's a loving Father. What father would want a child to be unhappy? The Father doesn't want that. Yes, He permits us to suffer, but that's where we find our happiness. Because when we suffer, we can show how much we love God. When we suffer, we can lose ourselves. We can die like that seed and bear much fruit. When we suffer out of love, because once we're in love, it doesn't matter if we are if we hurting or whatever, or the rain. That's because it's God's will, and we want to please God and embrace what is in the moment, in the present moment. Peanut's got to go out, so I have to end this YouTube. But God, we just remember God is a loving Father, and like Benedict XVI told the children and youth in the plaza of the Plaza of Peace in Leon in Mexico yesterday. God wants us to be happy always, and the secret of happiness is loving Him with all our being, submitting our will. Let it be done to me, like tomorrow's Annunciation. Mary knew what happiness was. Let it be done to me, she told the angel Gabriel. Let it be done to me according to Thy will. Happiness is and joy in this life and in the next is the Father's will. It's letting the Father love us, stopping, not doing our own will, but letting Him, surrendering to His love and tenderness and care. God bless you. Remember, God wants us to be happy always.